You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Johannes Ekström of Avatar. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
For crying out loud, I just want a sandwich. Hello everyone, welcome to today's episode of the ToneMob.com podcast, the show about guitar tone and the people behind it. I am your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, this is going to sound pretty good, guys. With me today, I have Jeff Bridges of Ventura Valve Amplifiers, not the Big Lebowski.
Not the dude.
Has it just been like just most of your day is spent explaining to people that you're not, in fact, Jeff Bridges, but you are Jeff Bridges?
It happens sometimes, but, it's not usually most of my day.
It can't be that, really, it's kind of funny because that can't be that uncommon of a name. There's probably, you could probably start a Facebook group of all Jeff Bridges or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I should do that.
Yeah, and then have a Jeff Bridges convention or something.
It's funny. He lives just right up the road in Montecito, just right up, 30 miles from Ventura. So,
do you ever get his mail?
No, I never get his mail.
I don't remember receiving any royalty checks. What, this from the Coen brothers? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
But hey, my name's on it. Why not? Nice, man.
Yeah, good. Glad we were finally able to do this.
Oh, me too. This has been
It's been a while.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. I'm glad I was finally able to get your amp shipped back to you after all these fiascos, which, hopefully those are over now. Hopefully there will be no more FedEx non-cooperating things.
Yeah,
so.
Shipping large, heavy, delicate electronics is always a challenge.
Yeah, no kidding.
FedEx can be your friend or not sometimes. So
it all depends.
All depends.
So nice, man. So why don't we start with kind of telling a little bit about who you are and what you do, and maybe we start with what you do to familiarize people, and then we can get into your backstory.
Okay. Well, I've started this company, Ventura Valve Amplifiers. We're a really small company, and I still have a day job. I'm a full-time electrical engineer at a medium-sized SoCal, technology company. And what we do at my day job is we build very small, densely populated electronics, really cutting-edge kind of stuff. And
right.
It's really a pleasure to be able to work on technology that's over 100 years old,
right.
and build a guitar amplifier out of it. So kind of at both ends of the technology spectrum. But I went to school to get an engineering degree, and I've done that on and off for most of my life, adult life.
Nice.
And I've picked up a lot, and then, I've been a musician since I was a kid. So, it's, I've started this company, Ventura Valve Amps, and trying to make a go of it.
Yeah. How long have you been building amplifiers before you started the amp company properly?
Yeah, probably for almost 10 years now.
Okay.
And we officially launched at the LA Amp Show in 2014, October 2014.
Oh, cool. Nice. So what was it that made you, obviously you're tinkering with electronics all day, so you understand it. Or not tinkering, rather, you're actually engineering. Most guys tinker.
We still tinker also. So.
Oh, okay, good. So you had that base to work off of, but what made you start working on, tube technology and amplifiers?
Well, like I said, I went to school to get a degree in engineering, in electrical engineering, but I went to school in the 80s, but even then they didn't teach you anything about vacuum tubes.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just always loved them. And it's so different from what I do in my day job. And, I grew up on tube amps, and I just always loved the way they sounded, and they just look cool. And
Oh, yeah.
like I said, it's so different from what I do in my day job. It was just intriguing. And when we moved out here to California, I didn't have an amp. And I didn't really want to buy one. So I started tinkering around. First I started diving into some old British vacuum tube amplifier books.
Mm-hmm.
Learned as much as I could, and kind of decided what I wanted to do, and started with something simple and put my first tube amp together. It was all just hand wired and on a turret board. And it sounded okay, but the first one wasn't that great.
Right.
But the first one hooked me, and like I said, that was almost 10 years ago, and just gone through lots and lots of different circuits, improvements, and reading everything I can, tearing things apart, putting them back together. And finally, I've come up with a circuit that I'm pretty happy with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it just officially called the VVA 50? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, and you can get them with either 6L6 or EL34 power tubes. So I'll call them VVA 50 6L6s or VVA 50 EL34s.
Gotcha.
Kind of a long name, but
hey, whatever works. That's fine.
Right.
So, yeah, what I liked about it is I don't know, where your mindset is when you're designing something, but that we can probably get into that. But what I really liked them for was I thought they were really versatile, and the EQ section was like really interactive, and you could get a lot of different. You could dial in whatever kind of guitar you were using. You could pretty much dial it in, and it sounded great. At higher gain settings. It sounded great at lower gain settings. But I think where it really shined for me, and I know one other guy I've talked to about him, Eddie, who's kind of how we got introduced.
Right.
He likes them kind of the same way. He likes them to set up for like this real clean, glassy tone, and that's what I really liked using it for too. I don't know if that was your intention or if you wanted them to be more rock and roll or what was it? Where did you go with that? How did you arrive where it ended up?
Well, I wanted a really versatile amp that I'm not a big pedal user, which is weird these days, but I wanted something that I could get a lot of different tones with minimal effort, just with my volume knob or changing pickups, just as simple as possible, but to enable you to get that dynamic range just with a little tweak of your volume knob or switching your pickups around.
Right.
And it's kind of a happy accident the way it seems to work really well with pedals. So I'm fortunate on that end.
That's kind of funny. Yeah, it really does a great job with pedals, and I am a heavy pedal user, so obviously
Yeah,
that's one of the. Yeah, you've heard such things. You've heard rumblings that
I've heard rumors.
Yeah. So like the first thing, like it to me, like there are times where I want a straight ahead, crank damp one cable type of situation, but I by and large like run a lot of dirt, so anything that I play has to be able to take that, and that was just a really, really good platform for it. And also it was good to like, I'd cranked it, of course, at at the highest gain settings, and it held together great. And then when you could actually push it into like some pretty heavy metal-ish territory with the, depending on what pedal you use. But like you take a clean boost with them that had a lot of dB on tap,
Right.
and you could really make that thing a monster, which was pretty cool. I liked it a lot.
Nice, man.
Like it almost makes a boogie type, triple rectifier type tones if you used it that way, which I was surprised.
Yeah, it seems to you can push it pretty hard, and it still retains the clarity of notes, which is really what I want. Another thing I was going for is, depending on what kind of effect you're using up front, but I like the notes to come through the way I usually play, because I designed this thing for the way I play, and then hopefully other people will like it. But so yeah.
What is that? How do you play?
Well, these days it's mostly like instrumental jazz rock stuff, but I really look up to Eric Johnson and Andy Timmons, those kind of guys.
Gotcha.
Kind of the classic rock, but still a little jazz flavor thrown in.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. So do you currently play with a band?
I do. It's been a while since I've played with a band, but I've been jamming with some guys for the last few months. We're having a great time. We're all working older guys, and we don't have much time. But when we are able to get together, it's a blast.
Nice. Are you just doing that just kind of like a weekend jam session type of thing? Are you guys playing out or recording anything?
We're recording our rehearsals right now, so
okay.
Try and get better and see what we actually sound like. But our goal is to get out and play.
Cool.
The other guys have all been playing out, but I haven't played out in clubs for a long time.
Right. Nice. So and are you like doing a lot of covers or originals, or what are you looking at there?
Well, we're doing some of both. It's probably a third originals and 2/3 covers.
Cool.
So if we've got an hour set that we can do of originals, and then we've got 2 more sets if we if we play someplace that wants covers. So we're just kind of feeling it out right now.
I gotcha.
It's just a blast, though.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what does your rig look like for that band?
Well, it's usually whatever VVA head and cabinet I have available, and that's always changing. But it's usually a 50-watt head, and I like the 112 cabinets that we make here at VVA, just because they're easier to lug around, and it's a closed back, and it still sounds really beefy, and they'll get as loud as you would need for most places.
Oh yeah.
And then I've got a very small pedal board. Well, I guess it's not that small, but let's see. I've got a first pedal is the Crybaby Mini. I almost never use it, but that little thing is so cool. I just had to have one.
Nice.
And I've got enormous big size 12 feet, and it doesn't quite feel right. But anyway, it sounds amazing, for what as small it is. And it doesn't take up much board space. So after that, I go into a tuner, TC Polytune.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I have a Sir, it's a Sir Distortion, but I can't remember the model. What is that thing?
Is it the Riot?
It's not the Riot, it's the, oh crap. It's a Sheba Drive.
Oh yeah.
Why couldn't I remember that? Sheba.
I got you.
So it's, I go into that, and then I have a Deluxe Memory Man after that. And
yes, very nice.
And then finally a TC Electronics Arena Verb.
Perfect. Well, hey, that's a pretty, that covers 99% of what you're going to need to do right there. That's perfect.
Yeah. And I don't overuse them, but they're there, for a little extra flavor.
Oh, that reminds me of something. I forgot. Speaking of reverb, we talked a couple weeks ago about you starting to tinker around with some possible reverb, FV1 circuit type stuff. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, it's more of an idea stage than actual hardware right now. But yeah, I'm definitely considering putting that into the circuit. Because that way you could get the preamp gain and then add a little reverb or delay in circuit instead of putting it up front. So that's something on the, you know, for in the future. So
Right. In the wheelhouse, so to speak.
in the wheelhouse, right?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I know there was something else I want to talk to you about, and this is kind of I don't know, a controversial sort of subject, or at least it gets people talking.
Okay.
But since you're an actual engineer, you can provide some insight that us just regular guitar players don't have. So
I'll try.
there's a lot of like hand wired versus PCB in the amp world, specifically. I know like that you use PCBs and you do some wiring also. So like, what is your thoughts on that? Is it kind of a blown out thing, or what are the pros and cons in your mind to each approach?
Well, there's definitely advantages to the hand wired and to the PCB. I mean, in my opinion, I think you can do a really well laid out PCB that sounds almost as good as a hand wired amp. And there's just something about, I don't know if it's all the extra solder and the lead links and the extra inductance, and it just all comes together as a really beautiful sounding circuit. Or maybe that's what we're used to with older amps because that's how they originally built them.
Oh, right. That's true.
But one of the ways I'm able to keep my costs down is to use a printed circuit board. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a hybrid. You know, all my pots and tube sockets are wired in by,
Right.
There's actual physical wires, but the audio circuit and the power supply are on PCBs.
Okay. Interesting. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I've heard, like Soldano has chimed in. Obviously, that guy knows a couple things about making amps, and
for sure.
he's I read a thing that somebody at that company wrote. I don't know if it was Mike himself or whatever, but he's a big PCB fan. Like he's kind of like of the mindset that it's actually superior. And it's always just funny to hear different guys talk about different things. So
the thing that a PCB will give you is consistency, because those components are going to go in exactly the same place. The wire lengths are going to be the same. So once you get your circuit dialed in the way you want it, you're able to reproduce it again and again with consistent quality.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It's because nothing's going to change. Like, you can't bump something. If you change it, it probably isn't going to work. So, interesting.
Well, each hand-wired amp is going to be slightly different because the components aren't in exactly the same spot, and the wire lengths will be slightly different. And not that any one of those things would make a difference, but together with the whole circuit, tiny changes will add up into to tone change. So,
right, like if you change 100 things by 1%, then it's 100% different. Like I mean that's kind of being overly simplified, but that's kind of how I understand it anyway.
Yeah, it all adds up, right?
Yeah, right. So I've learned some things. Mildly increased my electrical knowledge lately just by the nature of talking to people who know what they're talking about. And it's just enough to be scary, not enough to actually know what I'm talking about. But I've learned the importance. Well, I was mostly talking about pedals, but I'm sure this applies even more so to amplifiers. I just recently learned the importance of layout in an electrical circuit as far as what it sounds like, because I just thought, well, you breadboard it and you draw the schematic and there you go. I didn't really realize the other huge component to that.
Yeah, especially for audio and any kind of analog circuit, the layout's critical. And even with, like we do radio stuff at work, and the layout is really critical as you go higher in frequency. But audio, uh, any kind of analog circuit layout is critical. How the components and the traces are all put together on the board. So
Right.
yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's just like blew my mind. I was like, what? You can't just like put it like it's just you put it on the board and there it is. But no, I didn't. Are there some like principles? I mean, pedals and amps are two different animals, but are there some like good solid things to just never do or to always do when people are thinking about that kind of stuff?
Well, most pedals are operated with DC, like a battery voltage, pretty
Mm-hmm.
clean DC, but more people are using the switching power supplies these days. You want to keep all of the low-level analog signals away from any noise source if possible.
Mm-hmm.
And good grounding throughout is critical. It's just key. You've got to have it's not just the signal path, it's the return path that has to be very clean and as close as possible, so the electrons flow in a loop, basically.
Oh, interesting. So the return path. I'm sorry, might be getting too nerdy for some people, but I'm really interested.
Sorry.
No, I like this. This is good. What you? So I understand like basic DC signal flow is pretty, you know, basically like water. So
Yeah, if
when
you
you're
just think
talking
of
about it, oh, go ahead.
if you think of a battery connected to a resistor,
Mm-hmm.
so the positive is on one side of the resistor and the negative is on the other, and you have current flow.
Right.
The positive side is considered the source, and then the negative side is the return. And those paths should be equal in a well laid out analog circuit.
Oh,
And
interesting.
a resistor is about as basic as you can get, but you
Yeah, of course.
start adding EQs and amplifiers and clipping circuits, and it gets busy really fast.
Right. So what happens when they're not equal? What do we hear audibly when they're not equal?
Well, the biggest problem is usually noise coupling in from some unwanted source. So if you have some noisy component, it'll find the easiest path to get into your audio chain. So by
Aha.
keeping those keeping the signal path clean and short as possible is a good way to get isolate yourself from ground. Not really isolate, but keep yourself away from noise.
Okay, cool. Well, since we're on the subject of noise, this is you're a great person to have on for this stuff. I can just ask you all the weird nerdy questions and you will know them. I think most guys that are really into gear basically they kind of know the basic principles for staying away from noise and how to try to avoid it in their
Right.
rigs. But some people may not be familiar. So do you have any suggestions for, like, say somebody's like wiring their pedal board up from scratch, or like point A to point B, what would be the way to have the quietest rig possible, assuming that you have decent power supply and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, that's the first place you have to start is a good, clean DC power supply. And I haven't built a whole lot of pedal boards, but you'd want to keep your signal links, use the best wire and connectors you can, and keep those signal, the interconnect cables as short as possible.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the patches themselves, like,
The
don't
patches
make.
themselves.
Yeah, okay. Make them as short as you can work with, basically. Is
Right.
that's I guess that makes a lot of sense. That is just an extra length equals an extra,
Where you're going to get a voltage
antenna,
drop.
basically. Yeah.
And it's a potential place for noise to couple in.
Gotcha.
The cables are good, really good these days. And I mean, if you buy good cable, you shouldn't have a problem. But, stuff gets, your ground start degrading over time on your pedal board, and connectors start failing. And Just keep a good eye on those cables, and make sure everything's clean and doesn't vibrate too much during travel, and you should be good to go.
Cool. Do you what power supply are you using right now?
Oh, I use a terrible power supply.
Oh,
I've just got one of those little wall wart things.
oh, just like the
Here
one
I
spot
am.
or something.
Yeah, it's a one spot.
Hey, there's no. I've used a one spot forever for lots of things.
Well,
I found them to be quieter in
yeah, it's not too bad.
yeah, like some chains. Like I've had them. Had one spots like actually this is quieter. This is really weird, but
I bought
I
a real nice Voodoo box, but
mhm.
it's too big to fit on my little pedal board, so I haven't figured out a way to build that in there yet. So
Oh, I see. Maybe we'll get you on the what? I mean, well, this is kind of a. That's not what I meant, but we'll get you on the pedal train, and I wasn't actually talking about the pedal board. I meant literally a train made out of pedals, and then you'll have a big enough board you can mount one underneath. So maybe I can convert you.
yeah,
No,
maybe.
probably not. You've been playing a long time. I doubt I can convert you at this point. But
I'm always open to new stuff. So
nice. Was there is there a reason that you never got into pedals? I mean, or is it just for some
well,
reason you never needed one or many?
I mean, when I first started playing, I don't know if we want to get into this or
Yeah,
not,
yes, I do.
but so when I first started playing way back, because I'm very old, this is
Very?
back, this is back in the 70s. My first guitar was probably a late 60s Strat.
Mm-hmm.
It was really nice, and I totally destroyed it. But anyway,
Oh, my heart hurts.
yeah, I know. I didn't know what I had. And
Of course.
my first amp was this monstrosity of a Fender. It was a quad reverb.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to make a 412 combo, but Fender did it. Anyway, it was a beast, and it sounded great, and you could get a great clean tone out of it, but you had to get it really, really loud to break up at all.
Right.
And I started using. Well, I bought I think it was an MXR Distortion Plus,
Mm-hmm.
and I used that for a little dirt. It helped a lot, and then I got an MXR Dynacomp
Mm-hmm.
and I used it more as a boost than as a compressor.
Right.
So that was the two pedals in my early bands. That's all I used. And then after I got out of engineering school, we moved to Dallas, and I really wasn't thinking I was going to play music anymore. But there's this great part of town just outside of downtown Dallas called Deep Ellum, and for several blocks there's this concentration of like art galleries and tattoo bars, restaurants, and all these live music venues.
Cool.
And the live music places all cater to original bands, and it was like heaven. I'd never been in an area like that, because Austin kind of overshadows Dallas as being the music town, but there's a really, really cool scene in Dallas. But anyway, yeah, like the first night I was down there, I was at this place called Club Dada. I think it's still there. And Reverend Horton Heat was playing. I don't know if you ever heard those guys, but they're like,
Oh, yeah, great.
we could stand 3 feet away from them in this little place that holds about 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just killing it, and I saw that and I was hooked. So I had to get, I started playing, and was lucky enough to find some really good musicians, and we started playing in those clubs down there. And the way it is, you usually just play one set, and they'll have like 3 bands per night.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to carry a whole lot of pedals, and most guys didn't. This is in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
You were lucky just to have enough time to get your amp on stage and, and tune your guitar, and then it was time to go on. And then, you played your set and you had to drag it all off. So the less was better. But I was playing this, I had switched to a Fender Twin.
Okay.
And I hated the tone of that thing.
Was that loud enough for you, though? I don't know. Those are known for being really quiet. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
sorry. I started to derail you there.
No, it's fine. It's easy to do, actually. Squirrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had this this rack mount unit because I thought that'd be easier to drag up there. And it was like an ART, some kind of preamp. Anyway, I hated that thing too. So, and we, this one band I was in Texas, we were lucky enough to record a record. And, when you're in the studio, you can hear everything.
Oh, yeah.
And we were trying to record this one song that was heavier, and I was just hating my tone. I wanted to smash my guitar into my amp. I just hated it so much. And I asked the engineer, what do you think I need? What's wrong? He goes, you need a Marshall.
Right.
Well, that kind of makes sense. Do you have one? No. Anyway, so we muddled through it. So after the studio, I started amp shopping, and I didn't get a Marshall, but I got a Mesa Boogie Mark IV, a little 112 combo that's on steroids, incredible little amp. And it sounded great it sounded great for solos, but it still didn't have that beef and crunch that I wanted on rhythm. So I ended up getting a 412 Marshall half stack and a JCM 800 head. And then I had an A/B switch so I could solo either amp or use them both together.
Right.
And they were both channel switching. And so anyway, I just kind of got used to playing like that.
Gotcha.
Without using a lot of effects, just the reverb that was built in the heads and the channel switching, but then I'm dragging around 2 amps, so that's really stupid too. Who wants to do that?
Somebody with a roadie, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess not me. But it was fun, and I was able to get close to what I wanted. The sounds I wanted out of.
Right.
But that's a lot of gear to lug around.
Yeah, the pedal board's even easier than that.
Yeah,
but
I know. Looking back, that was
but
not the brightest plan. It just sort of evolved into that.
Right. Well, but I don't know. Back then, pedals. There's some cool vintage stuff, but there was. It's nothing like what it is now.
Yeah, it's just incredible. All these different. You can get almost anything you never even thought of these days. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's stuff that you didn't know you wanted. I didn't know that existed. I want that. I think that and it's kind of a really I don't know. I'm stumbling here, but I've said it before. I think this is like the golden age of gear for everything.
I think you're absolutely right.
We covet this vintage stuff, which is awesome, but let's be honest. You couldn't do the things that you can do now back then.
Not even close. Not even close. Between the pedals and then all these guitar builders that are, all these little boutique guitar builders that are just making this awesome stuff.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then all the amp builders, it's like you said, it's the golden age of gear. Mm-hmm. If you can afford it, it's out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's that's kind of the funny thing about what we're talking about, all this innovation and stuff, but it's still almost impossible to get away from some of the analog stuff. You're talking tubes, and we're still talking about all the dirt boxes. I've talked to a lot of pedal guys about digital emulation, and they're like, it's still easier and better to do it in analog. So why would I bother trying to do it, in the box, so to speak, when it's just easier to build a good sounding overdrive.
Right.
It's just funny. Where I was going with that is like, yet all this innovation and everything, but yet we're still rooted in this, 100-plus-year-old technology. Like, that's the basis of it. It's kind of funny.
Well, that's where all the music that we like was born. It grew out of this old technology, and that's what we're used to hearing. And it sounds great. I mean, it works, right?
Oh, yeah. I just have this fear that, like, because, like, obviously, I don't know if you've seen, you may have, they recently, and this was geared more towards, like, hi-fi guys, but there was a company, and I can't remember what they called themselves, but they recently reopened an old RCA tube factory here in the States.
Really? No, I haven't heard about that.
But the tubes are, like, nobody can afford those except for hi-fi guys, maybe. I mean, they were crazy expensive. I can't remember what they were.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
and they were just like, I think they only had one. I think they might have been 6L6s. I can't remember. They only had like one kind of tube that they were making when they first launched. But I don't remember how much they were, but hundreds of dollars per tube.
Yeah, that sounds more like for the hi-fi market than us.
Yeah. Well, I got really excited when I first heard about it, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be great!" And then they launched, and I was like, I'm not gonna spend more than my amp cost to retube it." Like,
Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense on any level at all.
no. But where I was going with that is it kind of made me concerned because I'm sure that they could sell them cheaper than that. That's just marketed to hi-fi guys. But it still seems like exceedingly difficult to have a tube, factory here in the States, and eventually, I just could see like the tube going away. Us in the hi-fi world are basically the only things keeping it alive at this point.
Yeah, but we're a pretty big market. And
That's true.
I mean, they make a decent profit. There's the Russian companies and Slovak Republic, and they want to stay in business, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Yeah, I hope not. I hope it doesn't happen in my lifetime. I just could see, like, if everybody got, I guess had to like follow U.S. regulations. I can't imagine those companies being able to produce them at what they can now. I guess is where I'm going with that.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that question or that thought, but I rarely
Was that a
do.
question? I totally got lost there.
I don't know if it was a question or a statement or a ramble, but it was a thing that came out of my mouth. So I guess it's recorded now.
Cool.
I didn't complete the thought. I don't even really know where that was headed, but basically, I love tubes and I don't want them to go away. And I guess that's as good of a segue as anything. Is what tubes do you like to use in your amps?
I use either JJ Electronics, or I've been using the Tongue Soles lately. I'm pretty happy with those.
Yeah, I see the JJs a lot. They seem to be, consistently good, especially for the cost.
Yeah, for the price point, they are really good. And they seem to be fairly durable. I mean, sometimes you get one that's really microphonic and just noisy, but overall, they're good, especially for the cost.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think about, like, I haven't done much experimentation with this just because, like, my newer amps have newer tubes and my older amps have old tubes, pretty much. But as far as, like, swapping in new old stock stuff, do you notice as big of a difference as others? I haven't got to experiment with that, so
honestly, I haven't done that either. I just kind of built my product from the ground up, and I've started with the newer tubes, and the new old stock is going to eventually go away. I didn't want to find something I really liked and become dependent on that.
Right.
I just didn't even go down that road. I mean, I've got buddies that use them and swear by them. So, and I've heard amps with them in it, and they do sound great. So, but to me, it didn't make business sense to design in something that's going to eventually go away or become more expensive and harder to get. So,
like prohibitively so. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because it seems like I've seen, or I don't know the details, but I've heard of people designing amps that and they're like, oh, you have to use a new old stock tube in this, otherwise the new ones like can't handle it, they'll blow out, or I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard internet rumblings about things like that before. Is
Well,
that
some of the older tubes could handle a higher voltage. So, I mean, if your plate voltage is designed at a certain level that'll fry some of the newer tubes, then that could be a problem.
yeah? Okay, so
'Cause
they weren't
it's,
just blowing smoke. That is
well,
a
it
real
could
thing.
be. Yeah, I mean, that is a real thing. It just depends on your design and which tubes you're using. Most like the 6L6s and the 12AX7s are all very similar. So but they did make special models that could handle higher voltages, and
Back then, or do they
yeah,
have anything
yeah. I
like
mean,
that
and
now?
there's still ones available. You just have to shop around.
Gotcha. Is it like does JJ make things like that, or where I've never really looked for that, so I guess I
They
don't know.
they make pretty like in the bell curve, right in the center of the voltage range. It's pretty typical of what you would
Gotcha.
find.
Gotcha. Very interesting. So here's a question, and I mean you're not a pedal guy, so you may not have tried anything like this. What do you think?
Okay.
But you are an amp guy. Tube-based pedals. I know some of them literally just have a tube in them for looks. Some of them claim functionality. Have you ever played one, or do you think they operate at? I mean, a lot of them are just 9 volts. So how does that,
Yeah, but
work?
you can step up the 9 volt voltage to get it to a higher voltage for the
Oh,
plate. So
that's true.
there's definitely ways to do that. Yeah, a friend of mine brought one over when we had our open house, and it sounded, I can't remember the name of the pedal, but it sounded really cool. And it had a 12AX7 in it. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play with them very much, but yeah, they're very nice. When I had like a studio gear obsession for a while, and I purchased like some tube mic preamps and tube compressors, and they just sounded wonderful compared to the IC based stuff.
Gotcha.
So it makes sense that would work. I mean, I honestly don't know enough about it to have a good opinion, but the ones I've heard sound amazing, and it makes
Okay.
sense. I mean, because that's what the preamp is in a guitar amplifier. It's just a series of 12AX7 circuits in mine. I mean, that's pretty typical, but
Yeah.
so there's no reason you couldn't do that on a pedal.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I knew that there was ways to step it up. I just didn't know. I mean, I know tubes require a lot more voltage to make them, usable. So I just didn't know how far you could take things once it was based on 9 volts. But that's promising. So cool.
Yeah, and there's people out there doing it, so there's probably a market for it. I mean,
Yeah, I've not tried. I guess I tried a Butler, like a tube driver, and that sounded really good. I mean, we're talking about Eric Johnson. That's one of his things. So,
oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, now I'm trying to remember. I think the one I tried had a built-in power cord, though, if I'm remembering correctly. So I don't know.
well, that would
Yeah.
make more sense to start with 120 AC and then make your own DC instead of trying to step up 9 volts. That would be a lot smarter, I would think.
Yeah, I guess that's how they were, designed to run, was on 9 volts. So that makes sense. It does. There was something while you were talking that it spurred a question, and then it promptly flew out of my brain because that happens. This happens to me a lot, as you are aware.
That happens to me too.
So we'll just do this. Are you planning on doing any other models soon, or what's the future looking like for you at this point?
Well, right now I'm trying to concentrate on getting this product more well-known and out into the market. Just build VVA as a product name. I got the Premier Guitar article, so that was really great.
Oh yeah, that was great.
So I've just finally gotten to where I'm happy with this amplifier, and I've got lots of ideas, things I want to do. I just don't have enough time. I do have a prototype of a 15 watt, that's basically got the same preamp as my 50 watt, with a 15 watt power amp, and it's switchable to 7.5, so you can cut it in half. It doesn't quite sound the way I want it to yet, but it's getting close.
Very
so
cool.
that's eventually going to be a product.
Nice.
And then, like we talked about earlier, I want to add possibly some onboard effects. See if I can get that going.
Right. That'll be interesting because I don't think I know there's some, but there's not very many like full tube amps. I mean, there's lots of tube amps that have a spring tank in it or something, but there's not very many that have like what we were talking about, a delay or something built into it, like what you were talking about.
The time-based effects, after the preamp section, I think would be a usable idea. But like I said, it just takes time to do some R&D and get it to work. And one other thing I'd like to do, I've got a boost switch on my amps. So my amps are basically, they're single channel. It's a fairly simple circuit, but it is really versatile. You've got 4 gain stages, and you've got two pots on the front panel. Each pot controls a pair of gain stages, so that gives you some coloring you can experiment with. But then there's also a boost that you can switch in on one of the preamps and gives you roughly 3 or 4 dB of boost, so it's good for solos. And that comes out to a foot switch, but I thought it'd be nice to have a little wireless foot switch. I know guys have done that, but just something else to add. One less wire to deal with on stage.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah, just run on 9 volts to have a little wireless foot switch for the boost. So that's one idea I've got.
That would be really cool, actually. Because you just stick it on there, plug it into your, whatever power supply you have on there, and there you go. That'd be cool. How would that work? I don't have a clue how that works. Now you're talking about beaming magic tone circuits through the air to switch things. How does that work?
I mean, it's on the amp. It's just you're controlling a relay. So that's very easy to do. But kind of think of it like your keyless entry for your car. It's basically a little radio. You press a button and it opens your lock. So it would be something similar to that.
I got you.
So
that's magic too. So
you'd have a little transmitter. You'd have a little transmitter on the foot switch, and then a little receiver inside the amp. And
that would be cool.
Yeah.
I like that a lot because I was playing with that, that foot switch actually quite a bit. Because I would turn the boost off and, color it a little bit. Like, just with the two, once you got the EQ section dialed in, for whatever guitar you're playing, there was a lot of fun variations just depending on how you set those 2 gain controls, which was really fun.
Yeah, you can play with those things all day. It's fun.
It is. If okay, I got not preamp, but gain 2 cranked and gain 1, down, you got one type of sound, and then, and vice versa. It was still you could get this crunchy overdrive thing, but it just sounded different depending on which one was up and which one was down. It was just really interesting. I like that a lot.
It's fun the way they interact with each other. You can just sit there and play with them as long as until you get bored.
Right. No, never get bored. No, not with this kind of stuff.
And then the other variable is your volume knob on your guitar, like we talked about. So it cleans up really nicely just by rolling the volume down if you want that.
It does. Speaking of guitar, I don't think we talked about what kind of guitar you were playing. Did we? Did we get that? I thought we stopped at the amp and the board.
I think we did. We kind of got sidetracked, but I started with Strats.
Yeah.
And I've played, several types of guitars, but it's usually been Fender and Gibson, Les Pauls and Strats. And a few years ago, I got a Sir Pro Series Model S. It's kind of a Strat copy with a humbucker in the bridge, and that's been my main guitar. It just, when I first picked it up, it just felt so natural. The neck is just what I've always looked for. It's just, it feels right in your hands.
Right, for sure. Well, Sir makes some just great stuff, and what it's really interesting about that company is like how they've always had super high quality standards, but yet they keep growing and their volume is up and up and up, and but yet always producing great stuff, no matter if it's the pedals or amps or whatever.
Yeah, they make darn good amps too, and their pedals are fun. So, but
do you have any other amps?
No, I've heard them though several times.
Gotcha.
And I'm a big Pete Thorne fan, so he's endorsed by them. He's got his own model.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
PT 100. Mm-hmm. Crazy amp.
Hey, speaking of demos, there's a demo guy for you if you're a big Pete Thorne fan.
He's awesome. I met him at the amp show. He came in and tried out the VVA 50, and super nice guy. Great player.
Oh yeah, he just kills it. His demos are great. I love watching his demos.
Oh yeah,
he's a monster player, and
he really is.
He's got to be good for business because everything he touches sounds awesome. I'm like, I know it's not going to sound like that when I put my hands on it.
Right.
But you're making me want it, so yeah, he's good. That's cool.
Super
so are
guy.
there I don't know that I've seen any demos of the VVA out there. You got any demos out there?
I've got a couple things on YouTube and Instagram, but nothing like official. I haven't done any official videos.
Gotcha. Well, after the shipping fiasco with this last guy you sent an amp to, you're probably not going to want to send anything off. Take you a year and a half to get it back.
Oh no, it's no problem at
all. Thank you again for letting me try that.
Thanks for checking it out. Appreciate it.
I did get a kick out of it. I took it to several practice sessions, and it was my pedal testing amp for quite a while I had it. I would A/B it, but I've always run everything through everything I have everything that's working at the time. So.
Well, that's good. It's good to gather data, right?
Of course. Well, it's it's all in the name of experimentation. Why are you out there?
It's for science.
Yeah, just leave me alone. I'm being a scientist. So that's what I'm gonna start telling my wife when I go out to the studio. What are you gonna do? I'm doing experiments. I'm doing science.
Let me know how that works out for you.
You've been married a lot longer than I have. You think I probably shouldn't try that? Is there any way around that?
Well, I wouldn't count on it working.
Okay. Well, thanks for the advice, Jeff. What's a guy supposed to do? She tolerates me now that I have my own space to go make racket. I feel really bad. Like, I used to play all this stuff in the house, and yeah, she'd be like, "Turn that down." I'm like, "I can't turn it down. I'll lose the tone." But
it's so cool that you got your own little music room building to go out and jam in.
Oh, it's amazing. But it kind of speaks to my my addiction, I guess.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Because I was like, oh, well, because I already had a room in the house for all my stuff, and then it was like, I don't have any more room in my room. We'll get rid of some stuff. No, I got to get more stuff, so I must have to build a room.
I got to build a bigger room for my stuff.
This is the logical thing to do, right? Like, this is what a normal person
makes total sense.
Of course. Yeah. Go out there and build a monstrosity of a. It's not that big, but it looks kind of big because it's really tall. And
and how high is the ceiling?
It is 14.6 to the peak inside there. Yeah, it's pretty tall. Well, I was hoping, it hasn't happened yet, but I built it with the idea that I'd like to try to record drums out there sometime. Because one of my friends has a great little studio that we can kind of record guitars and bass and vocals in, no problem. But anything other than that, like the drums, the room is just too small to record drums in, pretty much. So I thought, well, when we build that, if we need to record a drum track, we're only a couple miles away. We could zip over there and record the drum track at my place. So
Yeah.
that was the theory. It hasn't happened yet, but it's there.
Is it kind of a live sounding room, or is it dead, or how is it acoustically?
It's surprisingly neutral. It's not dead at all, but it's not got like this overpowering reverb, which is, I'm sure it could be better, or I know it would be better if I like did treatment and stuff in there, but I don't know. For what it's being used for, I don't think it's necessary, and I really like how it looks in there, so I don't want to add a bunch of stuff to the walls if I don't have to.
Right.
That said, I haven't recorded anything other than quick little tracks, guitar tracks here and there, so I don't know. It might be worse than I'm thinking. So it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because a friend of mine, I just basically laid it out in the way that my yard was like, well, I can fit this big of a building in this spot, and
makes sense, right?
Right. And so I made it as big as I could in the space that I had and in the shape that it had to be. So it's kind of long and skinny. A friend of mine really likes he is obsessed with like studio stuff, and he built a really, really nice studio. And he's like, "What's your measurements?" And so I gave him all my measurements, and he ran all the room ratios for me. And he's like, "Who gave you the dimensions for this place?" I'm like, "My yard." and he's like, "Well, the ratio is actually really, really good." I'm like, "Oh, okay then. Well, that's fortunate." So
happy accident.
Yeah, he was like, "Normally you have like this is like what somebody would kind of design to, So I was like, "Well, that's fortunate."
Somebody could have charged you thousands of dollars to do what you built just by the shape
accident?
of your yard.
Well, now I know. Well, it is kind of interesting though, because like, I guess now if I ever move or anything, I know to like, if I just keep the dimensions, I can make a bigger building or a smaller one, but as long as the dimensions are the same, or not the dimensions, but the ratio is the same, it should be pretty close. So I've thought about that before.
Nice.
I don't think this is a Guitar Gear podcast. A lot of people probably don't know what I'm talking about, but
oh, well, we got sidetracked, didn't we? Oh, well.
What's new? Of course we did. For those that don't know, and I don't know that much about it either, to be honest, but like, if you have weird room ratios, like if you have a perfect cube, your room's not going to sound that great to record in. That's basically the gist of it. So I hope I explained that right. You probably have more studio experience than me with that studio gear obsession you went through, I imagine.
Yeah, but I was like you. I was just forced by whatever physical dimensions that I had, and it's not like I had a choice. I was just built, used the walls around me and soundproofed them as best I could.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to do like the whole like double frame, all that stuff, or did you just kind of throw an extra layer of drywall and
I went crazy. I double framed it, but the first layer was reinforced and I filled it with sand.
Oh, wow. Oh, you really did it.
And then after that, I put another drywall layer that was insulated. So it was pretty darn soundproof.
That's pretty good. Yeah, mine. I did as much as I could afford to, but I didn't go that far. So
that's just way too extreme. It's stupid.
It's pretty awesome though. Is that your house, or where'd you do that at?
That was at a house in Texas. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. This is kind of an aside, but when I was researching sound isolation to try, make this place as good as I could, I got so jealous of this forum post. A guy was house hunting. He's a guitar player, and he's like, oh, I'm going to build a music room somewhere. And he was house hunting, and he found a house that had a bomb shelter built into the base, that like under his garage or something. Like it was like literally like you go down a hatch, like, and so he had like these, however thick concrete walls, completely soundproof. just already there, and he's like, we need this house. We have to buy this house right now. I was so jealous.
If you got a hatch, it makes it kind of difficult to get equipment up and down, though. But oh well.
I don't. Maybe I'm just envisioning that. Maybe I'm making up things, but I'm pretty sure he said that it was like a weird access point of some sort. It was like a legit bomb shelter. So
wow.
Like most people would see that and go, oh, well, whatever, But like, only musicians would be all excited about
music room.
Yes, this is great.
I can get as loud as I want.
I will say that is quite nice, being able to crank up. Like I can get pretty loud, and my neighbors have told me that like it's worse, when I just have like company in the backyard or something, like as far as the volume level goes. Yeah, so it did okay. You can definitely hear it, outside, but it's fairly quiet, and that's when the amps are really cooking. So I'm happy. But,
nice, man. Fun project. How long did it take you to build that thing?
A lot longer than it should, because I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, my friends are laughing, and actually probably like also like having horrible memories of trying to help me. Because I'm not I am not at all a construction guy by any stretch of the imagination. So I kept trying to do things where I'd try to like cheat the system. Be like, well, if I build it this way, then I'll save money on this, And it was a joke. It's completely solid, and like it all worked out, but it was so much more work to do it the way that I did it. It was so dumb. I know why that there's a system of doing things now.
Learn by doing, man.
That's true. So I guess to answer your question, it took me about 6 or 8 months or something to do, and then it would have took me a lot longer, but I found out that I was going to be a dad, and it was like, I have to get this done like yesterday, or it's not going to ever get done. So I brought a guy in to help me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the final product looks really good. I've seen pictures of it. It looks very cool.
Oh, thank you. Well, that was because I brought a guy in who knew what he was doing. So. That tends, when people know what they're doing, they tend to do better stuff than what I do. So, yeah, good times.
Right on.
That was the Tone Mob, amateur recording studio podcast. Thanks for coming on, Jeff.
Well, yeah, it's great to be here, Blake.
Right.
Appreciate it.
So let's do what I do and let you plug where everyone can find you, all your social media, your website. Where do people go to check out your stuff?
Okay, well, the website is pretty easy. It's just vvamps.com, vvamps.com. I'm on Facebook, not as much, but it's under Ventura Valve Amps. And then on Instagram, more than Facebook, under Ventura Valve Amps. But there's underscores between, or after Valve and after Amps.
Okay.
After Valve and after Ventura. So Ventura underscore Valve underscore Amps.
There you go. Perfect. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. It was a blast, man.
Yeah, I hope I didn't pull you too far off topic, and
it's fine.
Yeah, I will put all that in the show notes. So yeah, thank you very much.
All right, man.
Okay.
Take care.
All right, I'll wrap this thing up. So for Jeff, I'm Blake. Good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, that is your episode for this week. Again, thank you very much for tuning in, and to all you that have told your fellow guitar-playing friends, family, coworkers, and other associates, I really appreciate that too. And if you could continue to do that, continue to spread the word, that's what it's all about. So thank you very much. And if you're feeling extra spry, like you're getting a little stir-crazy and you just want more Tone Mob-age, that's a thing, right, head on over to tonemob.com and join the mailing list. I mean, why not? What's the worst that could happen? You listened this far. It doesn't get any worse than listening to me talk for this long. So head on over there and be privy to all the good stuff that the rest of the world doesn't get to know. All right. Take care. Have a good week. I'll talk to you next time. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.